It's almost game time in Atlanta. The Celebration Bowl is this weekend. We're previewing the game right here on the Victory Formation Sports Show. Let's talk about it after the bumper. Stay tuned. What is going on, everybody? My name is JeffLightsyJr. This is the Victory Formation Sports Show right here on JeffLightsyJr. YouTube. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and a notification bell because we upload just about almost every single day. Now, today, we're here to talk about none other than the HBCU National Championship game, the 2022 Celebration Bowl that will pair the MEAC champions, or co-champions, or whatever you want to call them, the North Carolina Central Eagles, versus the SWAC champions, undisputed SWAC champions, the Jackson State Tigers, led by respective coaches Trey Oliver for North Carolina Central, and none other than Deion Sanders in his last game as the head coach of Jackson State, as Coach T.C. Taylor will take over the JSU program as the head man following the game. Now, this is a really, really interesting team. An interesting game between these two teams. The MEAC champs and North Carolina Central did it in fairly nice fashion, fairly good fashion. They were able to pretty much beat up on most of the teams in the MEAC, had a really good record all year. They lost only one MEAC game. That was the South Carolina State. They probably played probably the second worst game of the year. Their worst game of the year was against Campbell. And that's the only common opponent between these two teams. Campbell played both Jackson State and they played North Carolina Central. Campbell blew out North Carolina Central, and Campbell suffered a defeat on Jackson State's homecoming 22-14. So that is the first line of thinking. If you're just someone who knows nothing about either team, you say, oh, they played common opponents, and that common opponent blew out Central and, got manhandled. They didn't get blown out, but lost to Jackson State. But I think you can throw that out the window. Here's why. North Carolina Central's had over a month to prepare for this game. You got to remember, the MEAC doesn't have a conference championship game. They don't have a conference championship game. So after the last game of their regular season, their season is over until the MEAC champion, until the Celebration Bowl, which isn't until mid-December. They haven't played a game since early November. Jackson State, on the other hand, has a conference championship game where they were able to take care of business against Southern. And then that's when they learned the news that their coach was departing them to go to Colorado. Now, let's look at it from this perspective. Will Jackson State be distracted? Do you think they'll be distracted because their coach has 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in the door? I think that is no. Here's why. This is my personal opinion. This is no inside information. I don't think Coach Prime has been coaching this team drastically, like really hands-on like he normally does, because he's got 1 foot in Colorado. He's been in Colorado half the time. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and half of that time he spent out in Boulder, whether it's finding the house, recruiting a staff, then hiring the staff, then recruiting players. He's done all of that in Colorado, and not just him, but a ton of the coaches on this current Jackson State staff. But the guy that's taken over after this game, T.C. Taylor's been there the entire time. They know that he's going to be the head coach. He's been running the show essentially this entire time, this last 2 weeks, since Prime was announced as the new head coach at Colorado. So I think with T.C. having been there the entire time and them knowing that TC's the guy moving forward, I think he's been able to right the ship and keep it steady and keep it going and keep it flowing like it normally would be. Business as usual, as Prime and other members of the staff dip in and dip out between Jackson and Colorado over the last 2 weeks. Trey Oliver and those guys, they've been prepping for Jackson State the entire time, I'd imagine. I'd imagine they had no doubts in their mind that they were going to be playing Jackson State in this game. And so I'm very curious to how Coach Trey Oliver will be able to implement new wrinkles. Another thing that I learned being in the HBCU nightly spaces was that some key returners are coming back for North Carolina Central after having the 5-6 weeks off. Right? You have guys that were hurt throughout the season, but now will be able to be eligible and be able and healthy for this championship game. That's major because one, JSU doesn't have film on those guys, and two, that helps a really good team get even better. Another key sticking point for both teams is the quarterback play. You got one quarterback in Davius Richards, who has dominated the MEAC Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Walter Payton Award finalist. He's been a dog the entire time. Fifth-year guy, graduate, all of that stuff. Head on straight, ready to come out and dominate this game like he's been dominating all year. And then you got Deion Sanders, another dominant player, true sophomore, pure pocket passer, over 30 touchdowns, less than five or six interceptions on the year, 3,300 yards with a plethora of weapons. No guy hitting even 1,000 yards with all those touchdowns that he thrown. But he's also halfway in, halfway out as far as it's already been, it's a preconceived notion. He hasn't officially entered the transfer portal, but he's been seen rocking Colorado gear. So I think that is an interesting dynamic. You have the underdog in North Carolina Central and their underdog quarterback who's not flashy, who is a more like a blue collar worker versus the flashy star-studded quarterback who just a dog, and just seeing those contrasts in battle because those two guys are going to determine this game. What happened last year? The most improved thing about Deion Sanders from last year to this year was his mobility and the fact that he wasn't able to get rattled. He had an improved offensive line, and he didn't seem rattled. He had a lot of freshman jitters. Let me not say a lot, but he had freshman jitters and freshman moments last season, and we saw it on the biggest stage in the Celebration Bowl with fumbles and interceptions and things like that. Like South Carolina State was able to get to him. North Carolina Central doesn't have that type of pass rush. But what North Carolina Central has that South Carolina State didn't have last year is a dynamic signal caller, is a dynamic gunslinging quarterback that can make plays both through the air and through the ground. What Jackson State can't allow, and they've been susceptible, and we saw it in the SWAC championship game, they can't allow Davius Richards to beat them with their legs. The problem with that is because Jackson State plays so man. It's zero coverage. It's every man for themselves. And if one lane opens, if one person's missing their assignment, not necessarily on the outside, but one of those linebackers, Aubrey Miller, Barron Hobson, those guys, if someone misses their assignment like they did in the SWAC championship game a couple of times, Davius Richards is better than Bubba. He's like light years better than Bubba. He will make you pay. Bubba made you pay in the second half of the SWAC championship game. Honestly, they just put him in too late. If they play Bubba the entire time, Southern that is, might have a different game. I don't think they win, but it would have been very interesting. Bubba was able to put up points on that JSU defense that nobody has been able to do in that type of fashion. Will North Carolina Central be able to do the exact same thing? I think they will be able to put up some points, more points than we've been used to seeing from a JSU defense led by Dennis Thurman. But at the end of the day, so those are some big time matchups. I am curious to see who is able, what this game, I think it'll be close throughout the first half. I think someone will pull away in the second half based on the adjustments. One thing that we saw last year in the Celebration Bowl, and I hate referencing last year because these are two completely different teams. This is North Carolina Central 2022. This is Jackson State of 22 and not the Jackson State of 21. And the Jackson State of 22 is 12-0 and has been dominant, has been able to run over teams, and has been able to impose their will on pretty much every single team that they played this year. But one thing that we saw in the game last year, when Jackson State was heavily favored last year against a South Carolina State team that came into the game when was only 6-5, literally one game over 500, and that didn't have really a great quarterback. But one thing that they were able to do, and you tipped your hat to a guy when they do it better than you, was they made the second half adjustments that JSU didn't, or the JSU couldn't, or the JSU couldn't match. Can Trey Oliver and his Eagles, because I think it'll be close during the first half. I think it'll be really close. I think these two teams are a lot more evenly matched than some may believe. But can Coach Prime and his guys make those second half adjustments that they weren't able to make in the Celebration Bowl last year? I say that because the second half adjustments in the SWAC championship game were made by Southern. And Southern just didn't have enough firepower, both on offense and or defense. North Carolina Central has a lot more firepower. They have the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year and a first-team All-American on defense. They have a quarterback who's the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year. And, honorable mention, FCS All-American. And then you have the MEAC Coach of the Year and Trey Oliver, and a guy who has been coaching for a very, very long time, and a guy that's taken a lot of pride in his school, in his team, in this game. Will his talent be able to match up with Jackson State's? And will Jackson State be able to make the second half adjustments that Trey Oliver and his team has been able to make this year? These are the big keys to the game. Now, one thing that is noticeable, it's very noticeable, is that North Carolina Central's a little light in the butt. They're a little light in the butt, man. They got some smaller defensive linemen, smaller yet agile defensive linemen. Jackson State has one of the best run blocking offensive line group in the entire country. Will Jackson State be able to push them around and impose their will with the running game and Savion Wilkerson on North Carolina Central? And even if they are, this is the question for the JSU staff because they tend to do this. Will they be able to stick to the run game? See, Jackson State at times are able to run the ball, but they don't always stick to it. They like to show off Shador's arm and throw the ball around the field when sometimes they don't have to. They got a dog in Savion Wilkerson. Savion Wilkerson is a dog. Sometimes you just got to feed the dog. Let him do his thing. Will North Carolina Central be able to stop that run? I'm not so sure they will be able to. I'm not so sure they will be able to. And North Carolina Central isn't a premier pass rushing team. I think I saw that they were either 4th or 5th in the MEAC in sacks. That's a problem playing against Deion Sanders. It's going to be a problem. You have to get pressure on Shador. You have to. That's the only chance you have of winning. You have to be able to get back there and make Shador make quick decisions, make Shador feel uncomfortable, move him off his spot, and not allow him to just pick you apart from the pocket. That will be a problem if they can't get any pressure. Shador's going to slice him up. I mean, that's just the God honest truth. Now, let's talk about predictions. I like this game a lot for Davius Richards. I think Davius Richards could end up having a really big game. Bubba from Southern came in the second half and had almost 400 yards of offense, running, throwing, and essentially in 2.5 quarters. Davius Richards is a lot better player than him. If Jackson State don't make those adjustments, and they are who they are, they don't really make a whole lot of adjustments. They just say, our guys are better than your guys, and we're going to play this aggressive man-to-man style of ball, sending 4 and 5 guys every single play, aggressive pass rushers, and dare you to beat us. Dare you to beat us. Playing this style because we think our guys on the outside, Travis, Nugget, our guys on the back end, Herm Smith, Shiloh, whoever, Javonte Davis, Aubrey Miller Jr. in the middle, and in our defensive front, they're better than you. So we don't have to make a whole bunch of adjustments. They'll figure it out on the fly, and we'll help them adjust on the fly. But we're not changing our scheme. And that worked really well in the first half against Southern. Then Bubba came in, and Jackson State still won the game. But Bubba made a lot of plays. And a lot of those plays, I think Davius Richards can make as well. Actually, I know he can make them. Will he be able to make them? So, I'm saying all of that to say, this is my prediction. This is Coach Prime's last game as the coach at Jackson State. They want to send him off and end this season the way they started it, in a dominant fashion, in a perfect fashion, to make this the perfect, put a bow tie on the Coach Prime experience at Jackson State, send it off for the history books, for the record books, and let the record show that this was one of the most dominant teams in HBCU football, period. They want to go down as one of the best teams in HBCU football history and have a magical run that a lot of people may or may not ever see again. And I think they will. I think Jackson State wins this game. I said on HBCU Nightly 31-24. I'm going to actually I'm going to stick with that. I think North Carolina Central covers the spread. I think North Carolina Central is a worthy foe. I think the MEAC has shown that they're more than enough worthy. They dominated this game 5-1, and Grambling being the only SWAC team to ever win this game. I think this will be the first win for either school, and I think Jackson State brings home the second Cricket Celebration Bowl title back to 1400 Lynch Street in Jackson, Mississippi, with a 31-24 performance. I think Savion Wilkerson will have a really big game, be able to get in the end zone a couple times. Shador Sanders be able to throw a couple touchdowns and go out on top as he ride into the sunset to to the snow set in Boulder, Colorado, with Coach Prime and probably Travis and probably Kevin Coleman and maybe even Shiloh. I don't know, but a gang of people and all the coaches, the assistant coaches that are going with them. But I think those guys ride off into the mountains of Boulder, Colorado with a Celebration Bowl victory. The SWAC champs will reign supreme for the first time in a long time in the Celebration Bowl with a 31-24 win over a worthy opponent in Davius Richards in the North Carolina Central Eagles, led by Coach Trey Oliver. Those are just my thoughts. That's how I think it's going to go down. I will be in Atlanta to watch the game in person. I will be there. I'm probably on the road or whatever by the time you see this video. I'll probably be chilling in Atlanta, sipping mojitos somewhere. Let me know your thoughts. Leave your comment. Who do you think wins this game? The Cricket Celebration Bowl, the HBCU National Championship game in Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Let me know who you think is going to win. Once again, my name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. This is the Victory Formation Sports Show right here on Jeff Lightsy Jr. YouTube and Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JLightsy7. That is Instagram and Twitter at JLightsy7. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button on your way out. Hit that like button, that thumbs up button. Like, share, and subscribe. I got JSU taking it home, baby. I'm rocking with the Tigers. I'm rocking with the Jackson State Tigers to bring home their first HBCU National Championship in the form of the Cricket Celebration Bowl 2022. My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. You're watching the Victory Formation Sports Show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Peace.